G'day punters, welcome along to this week's episode of Behind the Boxes. We've got a massive show for you coming up very quickly. We've got Wade Birch, who is the Director of Race Day Operations with GWIC. He's one of our special guests, and a man I call a legend of our sport, Steve Kavanagh. He'll be also a special guest for us on today's episode of Behind the Boxes. We'll also chew the fat. We'll try and tip you a winner or two. As always, I'm joined by my co-host and good mate, Timmy the Battler Newbold. I've got to ask you, Battler, today is the first day of spring. We're recording this on Wednesday afternoon. Does the homeschooling syllabus change anyone?
It sure does. It's a beautiful day in Sydney today, Duke. So we've been outside. We've introduced a few little sports today, a bit of hockey and soccer and whatnot, just to change it up a little bit. Don't worry, Paul was very happy to get him out of the house. He's not enjoying the homeschooling at the moment, Duke. I think he's well and truly had enough of it. And I think we've got another, 6 or 8 weeks to go at this stage. So, yeah, hopefully we can get out a little earlier than that. But, yeah, we're just chipping away as we have been for the last, 8 or 9 weeks, whatever it's been, Duke. It's all just rolling into one at the moment.
Yeah, lockdown continues in New South Wales. Tough time. As you know, Battler, I'm moving to Grafton in a couple of weeks' time. I bought a house down there, and the house that I bought is about 500 metres away from where the train line runs through town. So the first thing I did was I asked a mate of mine, Leo the Lion, what time do the trains run? And he goes, well, there's 3 trains a day that run through Grafton. They go at this time, and that time. I said, good. Just wanted to know so I can prepare myself. So we know planes, trains, and automobiles by themselves, they're all good. When you combine 2 of those together, it is a big drama. Now, Stevie Keep, Group 1 place getter trainer, Stevie Keep, has lived in and around Grafton for most of his life. He lives at Warragul Creek, about 20 minutes out of town. You would think Stevie Keep would know when the trains run through Grafton over the only level crossing he's got to get over going from the track to his home. But no, last week, Stevie Keep forgot about what time the train was coming. And as we can see on screen now, have a look at these pictures. This is what happened when the XPT cleaned up Steve Keep's car. He had a 6-dog trailer on the back. He tells me, Battler, that the trailer kept pushing him forward. He said the roads are very, dry and dusty and all that. He put the brakes on. But the thing is, at all level crossings, Timmy, as you know, there's a big red sign, mate. What's that say?
Stop. Look, you're meant to be looking both ways or whatever it might be, Steve. He has dodged a bullet, Duke.
Well, this is a guy.
I can't believe. It's hard to believe, actually, when you look at those photos.
Seriously.
He has got actually Powerball is, I think it's 20 million on Thursday night, Stevie. I'd be going and getting as many tickets as you possibly can. Actually, you probably only need 1 ticket to get away to win it after literally, I was going to say dodge a bullet, and you pretty much dodged a train. It looked like it's just clipped you, but geez, goodness gracious me, that's
planes, trains, and automobiles. This is a bloke, Battler, who's survived 2 heart attacks in his life, and doesn't know that the big red sign that has got SCOP on it means to stop, particularly when the XPT is coming through doing about 70 or 80 k's. Took the train about 300 metres to pull up, right? As we've just seen.
No.
Keep his cars a write-off. He was blowing up Deluxe about that, right? And trying to blame the poor train driver that he didn't sound the horn because the level crossing's on a thing. But anyway.
3 times a day. 3 times.
First thing I asked Leo the Lion, mate, what time do the trains go through town so I know, so I can prepare myself when I get there. Keepy's been in and around Grafton, as said, all his life. Seriously?
Yeah.
Can't. Anyway, look, on a serious note, I am very happy that he's okay. He did survive. He does a great job with the GAP program up and around Grafton. But I did tell him when I spoke to him about an hour after the accident, this is going to be a great part of our show next week.
Oh, you G'd him up. You G'd him up.
That is exactly.
He knew this was coming.
Yep, that is exactly what has happened. So, Stevie Keep, he will not live it down because, as I say, all his mates have been giving it to him. My phone ran red hot, so it was ridiculous, mate. But anyway, look, it's simply a case of there's a level crossing, you have to stop. So
It's not rocket science, Duke. It's not rocket science.
No, it isn't rocket science. It isn't rocket science at all. As I said, Timmy, we've got a big show coming up. Stevie Kavanagh will join us in the second part of our program today. We're going to talk about some of the great dogs he's had. But our first guest is a man who's had a long career in racing, particularly in thoroughbred racing. When I first bumped Wade Birch, it was back in my days at Sky Racing, and Wade was the chairman of stewards for Racing Queensland. He joins us today on Behind the Boxes. Wade, thanks for joining us. You've only recently joined GWIC back in March this year as Race Day Operations Director. Tell me this, mate, because you've had a career where you were the General Manager of Bangkok, the Deputy Chief Steward of Racing New South Wales. Where did your interest in racing stem from?
Well, I'm a parents, Mark, so both were involved in horses. Dad was a jockey when he was growing up, and Mum worked in the tote at Randwick when we lived in Sydney when I was young. So we moved to Queensland when I was about 5 years old, and Dad took up a position on the track at the Toowoomba Turf Club, and I'd follow him around at track work of a morning. So really just followed in the footsteps of my father. So I really had little alternative but to become involved in thoroughbred racing. It was something that I really enjoyed. We had horses ourselves, and we spelled a lot of horses on our property in Highfields just outside of Toowoomba. So I really enjoyed an upbringing in thoroughbred racing, and it was just felt like a natural progression when I finished school to get into thoroughbred racing.
How did you get into being a steward, Wade? What was the process for you there?
Well, I was actually playing football in latter years of high school, and I was also working on the barriers for my father. So he was the course manager at the Sunshine Coast Turf Club, and I'd work on the ground staff in the school holidays, and I'd work on the barriers of a Sunday. And Steve Ralton was the chairman of stewards at that time, and he was always looking for young people to get involved in the racing industry and the regulatory side. And I got too big to become a jockey, and I was pursuing football as a hobby and a sport. So I was a little bit too big for a jockey. So Steve Ralton asked Dad if I'd be interested in taking up a cadetship in the last year of high school. And I ended up doing work experience while I was still at school. Stayed at Steve Ralton's place for the 2 weeks doing work experience, and then took on a casual role in my last year of high school as a cadet steward, just working at the Sunshine Coast on a Sunday afternoon. And from that, I finished high school, and a week later I took up a full-time cadetship with the Queensland Principal Club, it was back then, prior to Racing Queensland. So that's how I became involved in stewarding. It was a great opportunity to forge a career in a sport that I had a great passion for, and racing, not just thoroughbred racing, but racing generally, has been very good to me.
Like many of us, Wade, I think you're bitten by the bug in the early days. As Duke mentioned earlier, you started in your role at GWIC, Director of Racing Operations, back in March. What does your role entail?
I think it's using my knowledge and experience gained over the past 25 years to create a cohesive and effective stewards panel. When I first became chairman of stewards in Queensland, I was only 29, and Jamie Orchard was the director of integrity services at that stage, and he brought in John Schreck to mentor me through those early times. And for my professional development, having exposure to a person like John Schreck, who'd had so much experience as a steward in regulation of racing as a sport, it was so very good for my professional development and understanding the sport and understanding the pressures that various industry sectors are under, whether you're a trainer, handler, administrator. We've all got our own pressures, and it's about having empathy for those situations and dealing with matters with that kind of empathy at the forefront of your mind. I think that really was important for my progression, and I'd like to think that I can do the same with some of the stewards that are currently working for GWIC and servicing the greyhound industry in New South Wales.
Wade, although you're predominantly probably best known, as I say, because of your roles as a chief steward and deputy chief steward in the thoroughbred industry, You're actually no stranger to greyhound racing. You're in charge of stewards and integrity operations at Racing Queensland when the infamous ABC Four Corners program went to air back in 2015. How much of a toll did that take on you personally?
Yeah, look, it took a very large toll on me personally, to be honest. So I think it was a very difficult time for the sport of greyhound racing. I'd only taken over the oversight of greyhound racing probably 9 months prior to when that program aired. I was also obviously overseeing the harness industry and thoroughbred industry in Queensland. But I think the manner in which I was dealt with by my employer, Racing Queensland, was a little bit disappointing. I'd devoted 2 decades of my life to that organisation, and the manner in which it was dealt with was disappointing. But you've got to learn from these experiences, and I did learn. It was a very difficult lesson for in corporate life or getting to positions of authority and getting to very senior positions. And understanding that the responsibilities that come with that and what can go wrong. So I think it was a very important learning experience for me. Whilst it was very difficult back then, I'm very thankful to Racing New South Wales for giving me an opportunity to get back into sporting regulation in Australia after some time overseas. And it's really now I come to a role such as this with a better understanding of what's expected and what needs to be done in a regulatory point of view and in a corporate governance point of view to ensure that the sport can be successful.
I don't want to harp on that time in your life, and these are my words, not yours. It appeared to me that you were the scapegoat for Racing Queensland for what happened up there during that time. But
yeah, I think in those circumstances, as I said, when you get to those positions, those very senior positions, and you're operating in a sport, particularly in Queensland, that's very politically, it's a political hotbed in Queensland. And certainly there was, there were people, I think, in positions that were looking to cure a perception that had arisen throughout or as a result of that story. And how do we cure this perception? I think probably the easiest way was to move aside those people that were, that were at the helm at the time that occurred. And, that was unfortunate for me, but it happened. And, we've got to learn from these experiences, and it teaches resilience. And, in any walk of life, in any career or personal life, you need resilience. You need to be able to deal with these things and move forward.
And you talk about that experience, it probably has held you in good stead in the current role dealing with the COVID pandemic. Wade, as far as that's concerned, greyhound racing at the moment is going ahead leaps and bounds. Turnover is at an all-time high. We're dealing with the COVID pandemic at the moment. We're doing as well as what we can. It's something we hadn't up until 18 months ago, we'd never had to deal with. What do you see as the biggest challenges ahead for greyhound racing moving forward?
Look, outside of the current circumstances and the COVID pandemic, and Tim, I know you're doing a great job over there at Greyhound Racing New South Wales with the transport of greyhounds to the track and everything such as that. So I see you up early in the morning shooting the emails around and keeping us informed. So it's great. But away from that, I think what we need to do in greyhound racing is appeal to the widest possible audience we can. We need to share our great sport with as many people as we can. We're competing for the wagering dollar with many other wagering mediums now that we weren't in the past. 10, 20 years ago, racing was the only wagering medium really, apart from maybe casinos or something like that. But now you've got Keno and you've got sports betting and things like that. We're competing for that wagering dollar. We've really got to share our sport. We've got to engage with punters and customers to grow our sport, and that grows returns to the industry and the industry participants. And that's what we're really here for: is to maximise returns to our participants that are out there racing their greyhounds and doing something they have a great passion for.
Wade, one part of your role is to monitor risks in the area of integrity operations in the industry. Is that a case of ensuring that all parts of the industry are complicit in regards to Greyhound Welfare Code of Practice that came into effect earlier this year, and everything being above board on and off the racetracks?
Yeah, that's right, Mark. I think it's extremely important that we maintain our social licence in greyhound racing, and that's not just greyhound racing. That's any business. You must have a social licence, and the way young people are being brought up and what they're really concentrating on is how, if you're running a business that is socially responsible, and ensuring the welfare of our greyhounds and ensuring they're treated properly on and off the track is there is nothing more important than that for a regulator. And we know, we've been operating in racing for a long time, that our participants love their animals, whether they're horses or greyhounds. Even greyhounds are dogs are companion animal, horses are working animals, and I think that there's great love by both participants, but probably horses are revered for their athletic ability, and dogs are too. But I think they're also, with greyhounds, there's also that companionship because they're so close to you. So I think certainly that area of welfare is something we need to continue to be focused on to ensure that we have a vibrant and successful sport into the future.
Wade, you mentioned earlier that you got into the industry early in your working life, and I know you're charged with overseeing the Stewards Cadetship program. What opportunities or even pathway is available for anyone looking to secure a role in that field in the future?
So it's actually a timely question, because we're meeting with the National Education Working Group tomorrow to discuss the Certificate 2, 3 and 4 in greyhound racing. So we're talking to the federal government about that, and trying to increase interest in greyhound racing from young people that want to get into the sport and forge a career. And there is a great career opportunities within sporting regulation. And I think that's a pathway we need to create for people to better themselves and get involved in greyhound racing and continue to better themselves. In future, if they want to move outside of greyhound racing and go into other sporting regulations, they're capable of doing that. When I came through, it was certainly it was all on the job training. There was no Certificate 3 in racing when I came through, and it was all on the job training. So what we're going to do is work hard to bring some theoretical training to back up that on the job training, and really provide a profession for people that are interested in greyhound racing but don't necessarily want to participate as far as race greyhounds, but want to get into racing regulation.
Wade, last week we asked for feedback from our viewers and listeners in regards to GWIC and their dealings with the regulatory body. A common theme that I got, and I'm not sure whether this is within your scope, but participants were upset at what they deemed to be heavy-handed nature of some GWIC staff when conducting welfare and property inspections. What would be your response to that and their concerns about that level of, I guess, what they're saying is that they believe it's probably a little bit too over the top?
Yeah, it does sit a little bit outside of my area of responsibility, but I think probably the body worn cameras is one thing I've heard that, a little bit unsettling to participants. Really, the body worn cameras are a protectionary measure for the participant and the employee of GWIC in respect of ensuring that that interaction is recorded and both persons' interests are protected, and it's a transparent inspection that can be reviewed by a third party following that. So I think, but I understand that the use of those devices is a shock when you haven't been involved in that previously. I think it's extremely important that we do engage with the industry and we conduct kennel inspections frequently. I think over the past decade, a stewards or a control body's regulatory area has expanded enormously. I mean, when I first started, it was race day. I mean, we go to the trials and we go to jump outs, but apart from that, you were a steward on race day, and your job started and stopped at the front gates of the racecourse. Now there's such a larger area of regulation, and our scope has widened considerably. And I think that comes from community expectations that there will be a level of oversight from the regulator outside the racecourse and in the area of training and housing and husbandry practices. So what I'd say is that Matthew Tutt's working hard with our compliance team to settle a set of procedures for kennel inspections, and he's currently engaging with various industry stakeholders to settle those procedures to ensure that participants do understand what procedure will be employed in certain inspections. So if it's a welfare inspection, it'll be fairly relaxed, and a general kennel inspection, of course. But if it's an inspection as a result of intelligence we've received about greyhounds that are not being treated properly, or there's allegations that illegal drugs are being used, then there needs to be that element of surprise to that inspection to ensure the integrity of that investigation. And that's just part of regulation, and that's part of being a participant in greyhound racing. And I think participants, should be thankful that we're out there and doing that work to ensure a level playing field and ensure that we're not vulnerable to outside influences in regards to welfare of greyhounds.
Yeah, and it certainly has changed a lot in the 45 odd years I've been in the industry. As you say, stewards' roles basically started and stopped on race day or race night, and today it is all encompassing. Finally, mate, what are you doing to be the big opportunities for our industry moving forward?
Look, I think it's just an opportunity to share our industry with a wider audience that see a product that is really well placed to attract young people today. It's fast, it's dynamic, it takes 30 seconds. People want quick results. That we've got, our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter, they tell us. So I think our product is really, really great. And I think we've got the opportunity to really engage with a much broader audience and get them involved in greyhound racing, whether it's, as participants, whether it's in a regulatory area, whether it's in marketing the sport, or whether it's just as punters. I think we've got a product that will be extremely successful into the future. And if we fulfill our responsibilities and we share our sport, and we understand that we may need to do things a little bit differently because the community requires that, and we want their support, we want the community support, then we just need to make those changes, because that means that the returns to the industry and those people within the industry operating will be maximised. And without the industry, I know I've been in the racing industry all my working life, and without it, I'm in a very vulnerable spot, I must say. So
all of us are.
We all are.
All of us are. So I know I've been relying on it for 25 years, and it's been very, very good to me, and I'm very passionate about it. So I take my role with GWIC very, very seriously, and I'm here to service the sport of greyhound racing in New South Wales, and I'll be doing my utmost day in, day out to do that. And I look forward to looking back in 5 years and looking at where greyhound racing in New South Wales and nationally is, and being very proud.
Yeah, the two buzzwords a couple of years ago were social license, and I think with the changes that we've made in regards to welfare of animals, and that birth right through the lifespan of a greyhound is absolutely crucial to ensuring that people look at our industry and know that the animal is absolute paramount. Wade, thank you so much for your time. I've always said it, and I'm not saying it because you're on the show, but you have always been the one chief steward that I've never, ever had a problem going to as far as seeking interviews, seeking information is concerned. And I know a lot of people in our industry are thankful that you've actually jumped ship, you've seen the light, you know exactly where you should be in the greyhound industry. Yep. But I say you have always been the most accessible chief steward for me throughout my media career. So thank you for that. But best of luck in the future. Continue doing the good stuff that you're doing with GWIC, and let's hope it's prosperous for all three of us, because you're right, all three of us need it to continue.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, thanks very much for having me on, guys, and I look forward to seeing you at the track when we can get back to the track.
Yeah, well, lockdown in New South Wales on the cards is about 2024. Yeah. Thank you very much, Wade Birch. We're going to take a short break here on Behind the Boxes. And after this, we're going to come back with one of the real legends of the sport in Steve Kavanagh. And welcome back to Behind the Boxes. As I said just before that break, our next guest is someone that when you talk about a person who's been there and done that, he ticks all of these boxes. Champion trainer with a champion race dog, not just one, but a few. Champion stud dog, a man who's been in the industry for probably longer than what he cares to remember, but thankfully, he's been a mate of mine for a long while now. Stevie Kavanagh, relaxed, looking $1 million at Pottsville on the beautiful far north coast of New South Wales. Cav, welcome along to Behind the Boxes, mate.
Yeah, good on you, Duke. Thanks, mate.
Now, listen, I want to go back to the early 80s. You were based at Dubbo. You put together a syndicate with a few mates, and you bought pups by Little Blade, who was a flying machine at Harold Park at the time, out of a dam called Pitstop Park. One of those pups turned out to be the incomparable Brother Fox, who had 23 starts, 15 wins, 3 seconds, 3 thirds. His very first start was in the Maiden Classic at Grafton. He literally came out on his belly, missed the start terribly, still won by 15 lengths. Cav, tell me this. How long before that first race did you know that you had something that was absolute special?
Yeah, a fair bit before that, probably. The first glimpse, maybe he trialled a 300 at Richmond one time, not long after he'd broken in. And I can't remember the time then, but we knew that there was something going on here. It was pretty good.
And Steve, his first major victory was in 1984, the Vic Peters Classic at Harold Park. He not only won, but he broke he set a new new world record of 25 and 82. What are your memories of that night? It would have been a memorable evening.
Many people, lots of noise. Yeah, it's an absolute schmozzle, really. It was just unbelievable night. Unbelievable.
I was actually there that night, Kevin. And again, when I've been asked the question so many times, who's the best dog you've ever seen? And I always say, to me, the best race dog I've ever seen is Rapid Journey. And I've always said that when I say the fastest dog I've ever seen, I include Fernando Bales, I include Brett Lee. The fastest dog I've ever seen was Jumbo, Brother Fox. And that night at Harold Park, he had box 4. We can watch this replay now. He had box 4. They hadn't gone more than 20 or 30 metres, and it was a good field. There were some very good dogs in this, but he's clearly in front. And it was that early acceleration, Cav, that really set him apart, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't think his first 2 strides were probably the quickest, but they were the longest, and he got going pretty well after that.
Listen, he would later win the Hobart 1000, where he set a new track record in the heats down there. He won the biennial classic at Harold Park as well. But prior to that, he took out the potential stakes at Wenty. He won by 13 lengths. And he went 30 and 65, which today is probably comparable to going 29-2, 29-3. At that time, many people considered him just to be a one-turn specialist. Did that get under your skin a bit?
No, I tried to avoid that sort of thing, but I guess, yeah, there's probably something there at that stage. But to add to that, I think if you look at the form, he ran second the week before in his first go there, I think, in the heat of that. But once he got used to the joint the second time around, as you've seen, and if you've looked at the replay, that unfortunately decked 2 or 3 of the others on his way around the turn, but that was all over then. I think he was 13 lengths or something, which absolutely amazing, I thought.
He also ran second in the Richmond Derby behind, I think it was Rapid Supreme, trained by Johnny Finn.
It was, yeah.
And again, a track at Richmond in those days, it was the 537 metres on grass, and it was a tough run. And for anyone who said to me that he was just a one-turn wonder, they were sorely mistaken.
Yeah, well, we chatted about it earlier, Duke, when you said to me a 13-6 run at Wenny back in those days is a 29-3 run at Wenny these days. And we know there's probably only, 6 or 8 dogs who'll run below 29-35 around Wenny. I want to ask Steve a question. You retired him early after, 15 odd starts or 23 starts. How hard a decision was it to retire him and then embark on a stud career?
Well, quite obviously, I was getting heaps of calls about the stud prospects each time he won a race, so to speak, because he did a lot of exhibition runs at different tracks and stuff, and there wasn't the same availability of major races then as there are now. Not to mention, there's nowhere near as much money back then on those races as there was. Yeah, and I thought, you got to get out while the going's good. If you have one mishap or one injury or whatever, all of a sudden it lets a bit of air out of the balloon.
Cav, correct me, did he standard start at 500 or 1,000 or 1,100 first up? What was it?
1,000.
1,000, that's right. I want to also ask you that back in 1985, the average cost of a 3-bedroom home in Sydney was around about $115,000. What was the biggest offer you ever received for Brother Fox?
Yeah, it was around the 150 mark.
So this is 1985. So if we equate it to today, well, Battler, you're flying.
Yeah, I can tell you it's about 1.35, 1.4 these days here in Sydney. So yeah, you look at that. That's quite remarkable money, isn't it?
Take you long on the bus.
And you obviously knocked it back, Cav. And again, it was, it's a case of there's so much folklore about Brother Fox. I said he's my favourite race dog as far as speed is concerned. But folklore had it that at one stage, nearly everyone in Dubbo owned a share of Brother Fox.
That's true. A lot of my co-owners had very good imaginations, and whoever happened to be having a beer with them at the time became a bit of a part owner for a week or two anyway.
It's like being at the underbidder on, the good horses or the good dogs coming through. There's always an underbidder, the old takeover target story with the thoroughbreds. Oh yeah, I was the underbidder, but they can all make up a story or two.
Yeah.
I found out earlier, I was talking to Duke, Steve, that you had a bitch back in those days at the same time, Shy Julie, who broke the world record at Harold Park for the 732 metres, and you had them both in the kennel at the same time. Did you feel any pressure having world record holders in the kennel at that very same time?
I think they were within a month of each other, those two wins. But at that time, I'd left Shy Julie with my mate Ronnie Brown for the staying races in the city. So she wasn't actually at my place at that time, but came from there, obviously. And those two wins were, how can you get a better month than that?
She was an absolute flying machine. Stevie, I want to fast forward to 1997. Olympic Park had closed down. The track that we race at the Meadows now was being built. The Australian Cup was run at Sandown Park at the time, and you were again in the spotlight through the deeds of a chaser called Smooth Rumble.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Terrific dog.
If you look at, we can see his replay on screen at the moment, but he was a dog, again, only lightly raced. And I guess that's one of the big things that I've noticed throughout your career as a trainer, which I've followed immensely, so closely, but you don't race the guts out of your dogs, mate. You actually protect them. And Smooth Rumble was a classic example, winning an Australian Cup and retired not long after.
Yeah, well, the basics of what you're saying are right. It might sound a bit strange, but I don't like going to the track just for the sake of being there and saying I've got a runner. I like, hopefully, to have some sort of a chance every time I go. But when you're referring to Smooth Rumble, contradicts a little bit of what I just said, because if you have a look at the race dates around the Australian Cup win, he was in heats and finals of Brisbane Cup, I think it was,
Yeah,
or
it
the Lord
was.
Mayor.
Yeah, at Albion Park. Yeah.
There was an early run, like a qualifying run in Melbourne. There was a semi-final after a heat of the Brisbane race, and then a final of the Brisbane race, which he won. And back, in other words, 2 or 3 trips within 2.5 weeks, backs and forwards to Melbourne on a plane, obviously. Which made it even more meritorious that he could cop all that without missing a beat, you know. Terrific dog.
And Steve, you eventually sent him over to Ireland to stand at stud, and he was a great success over there. I know
Yep.
you've got a great love of Ireland, and in particular the coursing over there. How big is the coursing in Ireland? I haven't been exposed to it a great deal. Just tell us, how big it is over there.
Well, I reckon if you went in any pub in any small village, or even a town for that matter, there'd be photos on the wall of whoever locals were coursing dog trainers. There'd be photos everywhere, same as there'd be the locals that were thoroughbred, because you got to remember all the thoroughbred places that were around where I was in Tipperary. But the locals, just about every farmer had a coursing dog in his backyard at that time anyway.
Quite
Kev,
remarkable,
tell us about some of the money that's involved. Kaz's been trying to get me to go to Ireland with him to the coursing scene. I'm absolutely petrified of it for years now. Kev, tell us about the money that changes hands there with betting in the coursing carnival.
Well, it's like here, you hear a lot of stories and rumours and all that sort of stuff, but if you go into the car park before you start the meeting and take your dog in and preparation and all that sort of stuff, I'm talking about the final meeting in Clonmel, which is the big one you're talking about.
Yeah.
You could easily park alongside a Bentley or Rolls Royce or a broken down Volkswagen van, whatever, in there, and there'll be up to, I don't know, probably 50 bookies, I suppose, and 10,000 people there. And that's at the Clonmel horse track, and the coursing field is in the middle of that, and it's the toughest coursing field in the country. Absolute, well, it's not a cult, but it's you'd be surprised the amount of people high up from England and all around. I've got friends from America, Germany, Sweden, and all that sort of thing that meet up there every year, and it's just a phenomenal thing. Terrific gathering it is.
I'm still hopeful of getting there with you, because I know if I'm with you, I'm in good company, and I'll be taking to all the illustrious spots that only a guy like Stevie Kavanagh goes to. Hey, Cav, your next big success after Smooth Rumble, it actually came as an owner. Now, you originally prepared this dog. I'm talking about Cosmic Rumble. Took out the 2010 Golden Easter egg, trained by your great mate, Darren McDonald. He was a product of your long-established and hugely successful dam line, which traces back to Follow Through and Miss Rumble. What sort of a thrill did it give you to win a Group 1 Golden Easter egg as an owner?
Oh, very good. Especially, as you said, I was great mates with Darren, and to see everything come together like that was really good. I won some good races with him, but obviously he had to go down to Melbourne to do the big stuff, and then he brought him back up here to Wenty, and yeah, the rest is history. That was, especially when he came out on his head and he was clear last in the post the first time, and then finished up winning it. It just shows you how tough he was. He could do it from in front or behind, and obviously 3 weeks in a row.
And Cav, that was his last race start, because I remember coming to your place at Dungay, just outside of Murwillumbah, a week or two later, and you retired Cosmic Rumble to stud, and again, he's been one of the leading lights as a stud dog in Australia now. He's
been terrific. Even today, there's a mini surge, so to speak, because people recognise that he's such a good sire of brood bitches, and that's created a little bit more interest again, even after all this time.
Steve, Lewis Rumble is probably the headline act in the kennel at the moment. You've only got a small team. I know you did knock back some really, really big offers after 3 or 4 runs early on his career.
Yep.
What are your plans with him? Are you looking toward maybe a Townsville Cup?
He's in there on Friday night.
Can we get a tip?
There's a couple of hot locals in there. I'll give you the tip, and they are very good. But unfortunately, it's a corner start. But that's the way it is. If you want to go around for decent money, well, you got to.
And Kev, I only saw you a few weeks back. We're at Grafton. Lewis Rumble. The last time I see you were there with Lewis Rumble in the Sprinters Cup at Grafton. There, you've had a long association with the trackers. So we go back to Brother Fox having his first start there. I just want, can you tell the listeners, can you tell the viewers your opinion of Grafton as a racetrack as far as safety and speed is concerned?
Well, I had no issues with it. I've got no issues with it whatsoever. There's less interference, obviously, because it's more of a sweeping bend, and maybe the box is a little bit off the track, but that's neither here nor there, I guess. And someone said to me about well, you probably heard them too, about they thought the winning post was a little bit around the bend or something. I don't know what that difference that makes when you're in front, do you?
No, I don't. And again, I think it's a major optical illusion. So you and I have been there, a stack of times, and when you look at it, laterally from side on, you can't tell. It's only when you get there and you take a sort of an elongated photo, and it's funny, a lot of the keyboard warriors who were bagging it had never ever been to Grafton. So yeah, well done commenting from 600 or 800 kilometres away. Hey,
yeah,
listen, Cav. Oh, it's a true. I love it, mate. I think it's probably one of the best tracks I think it's the best track we've got in New South Wales, and it's certainly one of the best tracks we've got in Australia. Cav,
well, I've been a few tracks on both sides of the world, and it's up there with the best of them.
Yeah, and again, it promotes safe racing as well. If you look at it, they race in lanes, and it's such a throwback, I think, to when you see Jumbo, you see Brother Fox winning, that 1984 Vic Peters. The way they raced in lanes at Harold Park to that top turn.
Yeah, true.
All right, Cav, last question. Is there a secret to having success in greyhound racing? Or if there is, what is it?
Only if you're persistent. Stick to your damn line and keep going.
What about trainers? What's your greatest advice you can give to young people on the way coming through at the moment?
Well, develop your common sense and listen to everybody that looks like they know what they're talking about. Put it through the ringer and spit out what you don't like, and go for your life.
I knew you were going to say it. You've told me that about 100 times since I've known you.
There's plenty of opinions out there. You know that.
Yeah, we're all sitting on one as well. Yeah. Hey, Cav, thank you very much for joining us, mate. It's been one of my great pleasures to know you for such a long while, and again, your continued success in the industry. It's testament to you, and I know you've got a great partner in Carol who gives you so much support. And Carol is actually our cameraman at the moment, Timmy. She's holding the phone up so that Cav can sit there looking resplendent as the Prince of Pottsville, right? Carol's the one doing the hard work with the camera. Cav, thank you so much. Best of luck with Lewis and the rest of the team moving forward, and we'll catch you at a track soon, buddy.
Good on you, Duke. Thanks, mate. See ya.
Good on you. Stevie Kavanagh there on behind the boxes. And Timmy, as I said, he's just an absolute legend of the sport. He's a man who, when you talk about success, Stevie Kavanagh has been there and done that. And I guess when you look at different trainers throughout the years, they stand the test of time, and he's certainly one of them.
Sure is, Duke. And you know what? He knows when to pull the pin on a good dog's racing career. He hasn't, those you mentioned, Brother Fox, Cosmic Rumble. He didn't keep pushing and over racing the dogs, and they then went on to become champion stud dogs. So, there are times you can go too long, Duke, and, it can be detrimental to the Greyhound's career when it does eventually get to stud. So he knows when to pull the pin. That's being a smart trainer, but, you know, a smart businessman as well. And, you know, you're seeing what he's done and the big races he's won and the caliber of greyhounds he's had throughout his career. And whenever you're sitting down and you're doing the form and the greyhound's trained by Steve Kavanagh, well, you know, it can gallop and it will be running quick times if it's got, you know, everything goes its way, because he doesn't, it wouldn't be in his kennel. He's only got a small team, as we mentioned earlier. So unless a greyhound can gallop, it wouldn't be in the team.
Yeah, and look, I tell you the other thing, Timmy, it's the case of, as he said, he doesn't race his dogs too much, and he likes to go to the races knowing that he's got a chance to win. I guess we all do. It's that, but again, there's very few trainers I've met throughout my career that aren't as smart as Steve Kavanagh is, and the proof's in the pudding. All right, listen, what's hot this week for you? My what's hot is coming up in a moment. We both agreed, but I stole it. So you tell me what's hot for you first.
Well, I'm going to give a young fella, I think he's fairly young anyway, Michael Stegner, a rap. He had a winning treble at Richmond last Saturday morning up the straight. I've got to say, I didn't know a lot about Michael, and I spoke to him earlier today and just got a little bit of a background, but he's got he's had a remarkable 2021, Duke. He's had 43 starters, 15 winners, 17 placings. He's got a 35% winning strike rate. As I said, he trained a treble up the straight at Richmond on Saturday. Then he had a doggy and a bull eye that night and was just nailed in the last stride, the only runner he had at bull eye. So it could have been a red letter day, 4 for 4. But yeah, Michael Stegner, he's been in the game a little while as an owner. He actually was a part owner of Exclusive One, who made a national sprint championship, I think back about 2013, 2014, thereabouts. So yeah, I wanted to give him a rap. He's had a lot of fun with the litter he's currently racing, Fernando Bale, Funky Punk, and she's been a great producer in her career. But, you know, Burnt Rubber, Wind of Change and Funky Girl all won those races at Richmond on Saturday, and Burn Rubber and Funky Girl out of the same litter, and Wind of Change, an older half sister to that pair. So yeah, Michael Stegner, well done, a winning treble last week at Richmond.
Yeah, good on you, Mike. And I think he got Funky Punk from a great bloke in the industry, Jimmy Coyle.
Jimmy Coyle, yeah.
So, and he tried, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he tried to buy Funky Punk originally, and Jimmy, or a brother or a sister to it, and Jimmy couldn't sell it because he promised them to other people. But to win 3 races on any night for any trainer, a massive effort. All right, my what's hot, which you also wanted to claim, but I pulled rank. Good Odds Cash. Seriously, Tracy and Frank Hurst must be pulling their hair out at the moment. Right, she's got an automatic entry into the semi-finals of the $1 Million Chase in April next year. She went 25.86 on Saturday night. And we're recording this episode on Wednesday afternoon. She's in again tonight over the 472 metres. She's around $1.15 at the moment. Her last 3 runs, Battler, 30 and 34 at Richmond, 29.51 at Dapto, winning that New South Wales State Sprint Championship, 25.86, 25.87 on Saturday night at Bulli. Frank and Tracy must be praying that she can maintain something like this or be at a peak again in 7 months' time.
Yeah, she'd be the form greyhound in New South Wales at the moment, Duke. She is absolutely airborne, and it's a tricky situation because we are a long way from a golden Easter egg and $2 million chases. She's already got that golden ticket into the first $1 Million Chase in April, early May next year. So it is a long time to keep her up. She's only very young though, and she's obviously now when she goes to the breeding barn, I would assume, at a guess, Duke, if she went to a commercial sire, her pups would be going for now between probably 10 to 15,000. You'd probably, at least maybe.
They'd be a $20,000 pup at the moment.
So yeah, it's a tricky situation whether they, just continue to race a couple of times a month or, and just, they're great trainers, Tracy and Frank, so they'll know how to get to the $1 Million Chase next year if they elect to go that way. But it's going to be a really, really good training performance to keep her up and keep her peaking. for that big series, and $1 million to the winner. You want to be rocking and rolling coming into it.
Yeah, 20 starts at the moment, 12 wins, 3 minors, and she is absolutely flying. Frank, I read a report. Frank said that he's done a lot of work with her with a box man. She was hit or miss. She was rocks or diamonds earlier in her career. She's nailed the jump at the last 3 starts, come out running, put the issue beyond doubt. All right, time to find a winner, Battler. What have you come up with?
My dog to follow, Duke. Look, no prizes for tipping this bloke. Zipping Lennox. He's from that really good litter at the moment. Zipping Garth and Zipping Lily, which, Zipping Maserati, Zipping Eve, and a few others who have all won races. He's only had the 3 runs. He won at Maitland on debut in quick time, and then he finished 3rd next up, then went to Bulli last Saturday night, and he won in 26:30. He was moderately away. He was 2nd last early. His big engine kicked in down that big, long back straight at Bulli. He got around the outside, and then he still gave the leaders a bit of a start turning for home. But, gee, I love what he did over the last 100 to 120 metres. He powered to the line. He'll be better when he gets up over 500 metres. And I did read an article that Jason hadn't trialled him at the track prior. So it was his first look around below 26.3, down the track. You would imagine he'd break 26. I think if he just progresses, which I think he will. I think he's one to really put in the black book and follow him, particularly when he does get up over the 500 metres, Zipping Lennox. Duke?
Well, a full brother, as you mentioned, is Zipping Maserati, who won the Grafton Maiden Classic, Timmy, earlier this year. I know Macca's opinion of Zipping Lennox is that there is literally a split match between him and Zipping Maserati, so it's a massive wrap for Lennox.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I hadn't spoken to Jason, so yeah, that is a big wrap then, because Zipping Maserati, he's one of the most exciting greyhounds in New South Wales at the moment. He's very lightly raced.
All right, my dog to follow. I'm staying on the big one-turn tracks as well, Timmy. It is a greyhound by the name of Cash View, prepared by Robbie Cookie up at Woodview near Casino. This dog has really turned the corner in the last 4 or 5 starts. He fell at Ipswich, if we go back to mid-July, took a tumble there. Don't forget, this is a greyhound that won the Dave Brett Memorial last year, around this time last year at Albion Park, ran 4th in a Queensland Derby. But since Grafton has opened, this dog has absolutely exploded. It's run 25-2 twice, ran 25-16, winning at Grafton 4 starts back, won on Sunday night, beating Katana and just rocketing home. If there is a greyhound, or if there's a trainer that would love to take Grafton with him every time he raced for his dog, I'm telling you, it is Cookie, Grafton, Cash View. This dog is flying, mate.
Yeah, I actually went back and had a look at his runs when I knew you were tipping him, and he's right in the zone. I do know him quite well, Duke, because earlier on the year he came down and he contested the National Derby, and he actually ran 2nd in a heat, but I think there was maybe 6 or 7 heats anyway, so he didn't make the final. But I think he trialled prior at some stage. I think he'd run the hands off the clock in the trial, and then I had a look at his form, and he did hit a bit of a lull there, but in recent weeks, yeah, he is absolutely, as I said, he's right in the zone. He's beating, Horace, Katana. They're the best sprinters up around the Northern Rivers at the moment. So, he is a dog. And it might be just a case of, he's always had that ability. He showed what he could do early on. Bit of a lull, and the pennies just really beginning to drop a little bit, June.
Yeah, absolutely. By raw ability, Anthony's dual Group 1 winning sire out of Cashbot, Cookie Spree. So Cash View is my greyhound to follow. Speaking of Grafton, Timmy, earlier this afternoon, terrific training performance from Frank Hancock. Now, the record over the 350 metres was 1981, set by Orson's Lorry a couple of weeks back. Evelyn Harris's dog winning its maiden. Frank Hancock had Diamond Jill in today, first up for 6 months, and she has equalled that 350 metre track record, running 1981. So terrific effort there by Frankie, and obviously Diamond Jill, a greyhound who's run 23.6, I think, at Lismore over the 400, but I know Frank's had problems with her. boy, when she's on song, she's a little flying machine as well, mate.
Yeah, some training performance, first up in 6 months. And yeah, we know the calibre of greyhounds which have gone around Grafton in recent weeks, Duke.
Yeah.
So it's no mean feat to equal that record, that's for sure.
Don't forget, if you'd like to get in touch with us here at Behind the Boxes, you can email us. The email address is on the screen down there, btb@grnsw.com.au. Battler, I'll tell you what, the amount of phone calls I've got, the amount of texts I've got from mates and listeners and viewers and that, and it generally goes along the line of this: hey, Duke, can you tell me what Battler bought this week? What's he done in online shopping? Last week you were telling us you bought the martini glasses. You're going to try your hand at espresso martini. What happened there, mate?
Well, you know what? I've been wrapping the online shopping for quite a few weeks because you order it and they're here within 48 hours. Well, the martini glasses, lo and behold, they only turned up today, about half an hour before we started recording this show. So, well, I think it's martini glasses anyway.
How many martini glasses did you
I think there's only 4 or 6. I can't really remember. But so the plan was last Saturday, have a barbecue and try my hand at an espresso martini. So that might be this Saturday. Hopefully we've got beautiful spring weather in Sydney so I can stay locked in my backyard and not go anywhere because we just can't get out. And we might, cook another barbie and we'll try a hand anyway. Well, I think it is cheap because I've ordered that much over the last few weeks.
Now listen, what's your website of choice? Is it catch.com.au? I mean,
Kogan. And just beware though, when you do sign up, you just get bombarded. They're too smart for me. You get bombarded with the emails and the messages on the app and everything. Let's say, what the bargains for this week,
of course,
daily. So you just keep spending. I'm on first name basis with the career guys. There's Barry, Tony. Don't know the other bloke. We get to know him, but the regular guys keep turning up. So yeah.
Here's a tip for you, Battler. Just go to the bottom of the email and press unsubscribe.
Yeah, I know. I've done that too for a few others. I just don't want to look at the credit card, Duke, to be quite frank.
You are flying, seriously. You left $500,000 a year gig at Sky to go to Greyhound. You wouldn't have taken a haircut to go there, let me tell you.
Now I've heard it all.
Listen, mate, keep going well with the courier. I know it's a strain. Wade mentioned it earlier in the show on that, but there are a lot of people thankful that, as I say, we're still racing, and without that courier service that you guys at GRNSW are providing, their dogs wouldn't be getting a start and wouldn't be going to the track, mate.
Yeah, Duke. Look, I'm only playing a little tiny part in all of that, but that's what I keep telling people here in New South Wales. Under these conditions, we're just lucky to be going to the race. Well, I'm not, but the trainers are lucky to be having their dogs at the track racing for prize money. We all know that there's restaurants, there's everything's shutting here in Sydney. There's people who aren't earning a living, but we've still got an opportunity to go to the race and racetrack and earn prize money. We've got to be very thankful of that, Duke.
Yeah, absolutely true. Listen, good show today, mate. Wade Birch, Stevie Kavanagh, we've chewed the fat. We've tried to find a winner. Good luck with the online shopping. Good luck with homeschooling with the new spring semester starting. Mate, I'll catch you next week.
All right, Duke. It's been a lot of fun again.
Timmy the Battler Newbold there. And as I said, next week, it's Are You OK Day next Thursday week. We're going to do something about that for people who are doing it tough, and not just in the greyhound industry, but in the wider community as well. Hopefully you can back a winner in the next week or so. I'm Mark Duclos. This has been Behind the Boxes. We'll catch you next week.